Well, an emergency episode of Hoge and Jahns, courtesy of the news from The Athletic. A reminder of why you should be subscribed to The Athletic. The great Scott Powers coming through on the news. The Bears purchase agreement for Arlington Park.
My guy, SJ Pow Pow, with the overnight news. Got us all busy at around 9 p.m. last night, but very happy for Scott Powers for the scoop.
Cool. Thanks for the heads up, buddy. Could have used probably another 2 hours of sleep that I didn't get. But okay, I won't hold that against you. The presenting sponsor for today's episode of Hoge and Jahns is Visa, a network working for everyone. And yes, the Bears have a purchase agreement for Arlington Park. I am not surprised by this one bit. I think this thing has been headed down this road for a long time. As soon as you knew they made the bid official in June, they weren't going to give it to anybody else. Obviously. And so if the Bears were making a bid, they were going to come to this purchase agreement. And I have always been expecting it to happen when the Arlington season officially closed, which happens Saturday. So the timing of this all makes sense. Now it's just time to talk about what it means.
Yeah. What's the agreement for? Churchill Downs said, what, $197 million?
Yes.
So not too bad, actually. Not too bad at all.
You got that, right?
Yeah. Just take out a construction loan, no problem.
The Hoge and Jahns podcast should have bought the property.
Hoge Jahns Stadium. Sounds fantastic.
I mean, that could still be on the table, if we're being honest.
Hey, we're growing. Give us a few years. By the time they're looking for naming rights, you never know.
You never know. All right, so look, this is like the equivalent of, just so everyone's aware of, if you're buying a house, you sign a contract, you come to an agreement on the price, you sign the contract. A lot of red tape that you still have to get through. You got inspections, right? You got things you negotiate over after that inspection's done. And then there's a closing date that gets set up usually 45 days later. Okay. And at any point, it can fall through. Different things can happen. I'm not going to lie. I've signed one of these. We found a different house, ended up buying the other house. Okay. Like, things can happen. And in this case with the stadium, it's going to be a hell of a lot more than 45 days.
Yeah.
In fact, it sounds like it's going to be late 2022, early 2023 before we're talking about this thing actually being finalized. And a lot of things can happen between now and then.
Oh, yeah. This new stadium is well off in the future. Then you got, the groundbreaking and all that and the years of construction. But, unlike buying a home, if they find mold in the walls at Arlington Park, the Bears will just be like, okay, we'll just knock that wall down.
Yes.
As opposed to going back to the negotiation table, unless it's a lot of mold, but I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, it's just, that's just like kind of the disclaimer off the top, but there's a lot of reasons to take this very, very seriously. And
can I give you number one? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go give me number one. I think there's like 20
The Bears
reasons.
don't own their own freaking stadium.
Yes.
This is it.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is along those lines, like the league has changed so much to the point that it is now very, very obvious that owning one of these monstrosities is a very good thing for business. Okay. Yes, it costs a lot of money to do it. And where that money is going to be coming from is an enormous question mark in all of this. But the value almost instantly takes over whatever the money is spent. Like, in SoFi Stadium right now is a perfect example. $5 billion. Insane amount of money. Now, Stan Kroenke's got money from all over the world to pay for that, and the Bears do not. So that's a huge difference. How that's going to get figured out, we'll find out. We don't necessarily know right now. But I think the league, if you haven't been paying attention, the NFL is very, very invested in growing everywhere. Like, they had say in that Tottenham stadium that we went to a couple years ago in London, right? That was designed with the NFL in mind. They literally roll out a different field, the soccer pitch, right, to expose the NFL field under it, which is not natural grass. And like, it's an insane stadium. It's an insane stadium. There's insane stadiums popping up all over the place, okay? Minneapolis has done a great job there with US Bank Stadium. We have SoFi Stadium. A couple of weeks from now, we're going to be in Vegas. We get to see the Raiders' new stadium, okay? They're all over the place. And in a market like Chicago, I don't know if you've noticed, the NFL's trying to take over the world. And they're going to be heavily invested and involved in a new stadium in Chicago, in Arlington Heights, around Chicago, wherever it will be. And that's reason enough to think that this thing could end up getting done.
Since 2000, Adam, I put this in our athletic article last night, there's been 17 new stadiums open around the league. Even if you expand it by another year, it's 21 stadiums to 1999. 21 stadiums since 1999 have opened across the league. 2 of them were last year, obviously. Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, SoFi Stadium. We were just there in California. You have the one in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Serious money is being spent, but serious money can be made. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Rams and Chargers get $500 million from the NFL itself to help build SoFi Stadium?
Yeah, the Vikings got money too from the league.
So you don't think
they understand they understand that whatever money they kick in comes back tenfold. Yes. With Super Bowls, events, NFL drafts, whatever. It all helps the product grow.
Yes. And you don't think they're going to help the Chicago Bears, the founding franchise, the team? If it didn't exist, the league wouldn't exist. You don't think the league is going to help out the Bears a little bit here? More than a little bit here? Significantly.
Look,
here's $1 billion, Bears. Have at it.
Yeah, and that's just one angle to this. I think another angle is, what is the future of ownership with Chicago Bears, which I think is a very, very valid question. And when we start talking about the stadium being, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years down the road, whatever it'll end up being, that's a long time from now. What's the state of the ownership? Are there members of the board right now that are going to end up taking on a bigger chunk of ownership with the team? That's a possibility.
Well, there's a really rich guy on there, isn't there, who just helped out Northwestern?
Yeah, I mean, Pat Ryan has been heavily involved in building the facility at Northwestern that they built. That's why it's called Ryan Fieldhouse. He just kicked in, what was that, another $400 million a couple weeks ago to help out the whole university, including starting to renovate Ryan Field. So there's that name again, Ryan. And he's part of the Bears ownership group now. So it may not, everyone gets caught up sometimes in and it's all fair, how the McCaskies have basically inherited this team from down the road. It used to be run by football people. It's not really run by football people now. They're not anywhere near the type of owners that Jerry Jones or Stan Kroenke is. And that's all fair, but who's going to be really calling the shots in the future? And then I don't have it in front of me right now, but there was that weird connection between one of the other guys and Churchill Downs, wasn't there?
Oh, there were all sorts of layers.
Yeah, there was a web of interesting, which was another indication you knew that the Bears were going to get this property if they really wanted it. So, and you know what? There's going to be a sense of urgency too from Arlington Heights and Churchill Downs. Can't just sit on this for a year and a half and then have it fall through. So that's where this conversation now goes back to Chicago. Did you happen to hear the mayor on the score this morning?
I did.
So I caught about the second half of the interview while I was in the car. So fill me in on if I missed something.
I just my number one takeaway from that is that the Bears haven't, at least according to Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, that they have not come to the table with reasonable demands.
Well, it doesn't sound like they've come to the table at all. The way she keeps putting it.
She characterized it that way, but we know how these things work, right? I'm
right.
sure there's been conversations. Was it WBEZ just had the emails with Ted Phillips that came out? I mean, this is years in the making. This even precedes Lori Lightfoot's administration. This is, again, years in the making. I think that this is my thought. Chicago cannot provide the Bears with what they want or with what they need.
Agreed.
And I don't know what they can do to change that, but we're talking about land, like significant acreage of land. Like, where's that going to be in Chicago? You knock down McCormick Place? I don't know.
Well, there's that old steel mill on the south side, but I think there's like ecological concerns about that. And
yes, again,
yeah,
layers. That's, I think, where it ends. And you have a team that is motivated, extremely motivated, to finally build their own stadium. So you really have no leverage in this. You got this lease agreement where the Bears can get out of it for $84 million. They just pay $200 for that other land out in Arlington.
I don't know how many times I could have pounded that into the ground that was not a problem. And it's still not a problem. They'll pay the money. The mayor said this morning that they're going to have to pay the money if they leave. Great. Cool. They'll make it up. Like I said, they'll make it up tenfold. And
maybe
Roger,
the NFL will cover it.
I was going to say Roger Goodell might write the check himself, which goes back to it. Like, the mayor does deserve criticism on this. I mean, there's obviously been some frustration from the city towards the Bears. Didn't she make the comment like a year ago at this time that they haven't been like equal partners? That had to do with the COVID stuff and getting fans back in the stands. And then she I knew she was off base on this whole thing when it was after I wrote that column in February about Arlington, and then something developed a couple weeks after that, and then she actually got asked about it at some press conference, and she said something along the lines of the NFL won't let the Bears leave. And that was the moment I knew that she was not totally in touch with how this stuff works in the NFL. On the NFL side of it, she doesn't work for the NFL, so maybe, I don't know. But she obviously didn't realize that the NFL, if they're going to pick a side here, it's going to be the giant stadium that helps the whole league. Okay, not the city of Chicago. And they're not putting their foot down and saying, "Oh, you can't leave because of this lease agreement." Get out of here. It's nonsense.
A lot of nonsense, but
like that statement too in June, where funny statement
with the hilarious statement, actually. Yes,
I mean, one of the greatest statements of all time, if we're being honest, and also completely fair. Taking shots, just beat the Packers, be relevant past October. I mean, funny stuff. I mean, for a mayor to put that out, love it. So no criticism there, except for the fact that that's a good way to also piss off the Bears.
Yeah.
After they made a pretty big step of saying, "Hey, we have the money. We're actually making a bid to buy Arlington Park."
This is in 2000. What is 2001, right? Where the Bears renovated Soldier Field.
Yeah, I think
20 years ago
was the season when they were gone.
Yeah, when they were in Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed since then, man. So much has changed. There's so many examples of that team spending serious money, not just on players, but their own. Hallis Hall's been remodeled and expanded twice since then.
Yeah.
They moved training camp from Bourbonnais to Hallis Hall. I mean, there's so many signs pointing in this direction. I don't think they're going back on it. I think it's going to be Arlington. Unless the city agrees to knock down a bunch of stuff somewhere. Like, I don't see how this changes.
And I don't.
And then give it to the Bears for free.
Yeah, and I don't think they will, because again, it comes down to how are you going to pay for it, and I don't see the city putting that on the taxpayers. Again, and here's the problem too. I mean, let's just be honest. The city of Chicago, if there's one thing we don't do well, it's stadiums. We just don't. The renovation of Wrigley Field has probably been the best thing that's happened stadium-wise in like a century. And that took a crazy billionaire owner to come in and basically said, "We're just going to do this, okay?" And that may end up being what has to happen with the Bears to get this whole thing done. But, whether it's, there's so many examples. I mean, United Center is a fine building, but there's no, how would they built it where there's no train there actually is a train that goes by it, but there's no stop. Like what? What are we doing here? Like every stadium has some major problem with it. And Wrigley Field was just a crumbling mess before they finally fixed it up, and now it's a good thing. And all the complaint, the video boards. Now look at it. It's a great place.
Yes.
Open up your mind a little bit to this stuff. They're going to put a roof on the Bears Stadium. Yes, they're going to put a roof on the Bears Stadium because you know what's a total myth? Bear weather. Total myth.
Yeah.
I can think of one game in 11 years of covering this team where it actually helped them win a game, and that was against the Rams in 2018 when Jared Goff looked like he'd never been,
cold before.
Cold in his life. All right, like one time it helped them. Get out of here with that stuff.
If you look at the list of NFL stadiums that are currently in use, by far the oldest is Soldier Field. And I know it was rehabbed, gutted, flying saucer dropped in the middle of it, whatever you want to say about it. But that's opened in 1924. 1924. It's just time sometimes. And don't get me wrong. I love sometimes the drive down to the city. You see, especially early fall, right? You see the skyline. The traffic isn't bad. You go through the city a little bit. You hit the Lake Michigan. It's nice. It's scenic. I like it. I really do.
You hit the traffic.
No, then you hit the traffic. But yeah, but eventually it's just time. I've heard all the horror stories from fans trying to get there. Soldier Field's on this unique little island on the east side of Chicago. It can be very difficult to get to. I'm not saying Arlington's going to be easy to get to, but at least you have a major train that goes right next to it. A couple highways, Northwest Highway and whatnot. It's sometimes it's just time. The oldest stadium in use in the NFL right now, and the team doesn't own it. It's just time.
It is. And we'll see where this goes. Like I said, it's there's a lot of excitement today, which is why we got here to do this emergency podcast on it. But there's a lot of things that need to be figured out here, including the traffic. I mean, speaking of traffic, it's not like traffic just miraculously goes away. I think there's a way to make it way more convenient and have multiple entry points. Unlike Soldier Field right now, where you have to somehow go through Lakeshore Drive or cross Lakeshore Drive or get over those train tracks somehow. It
could be a pain. And it's going to be a nightmare up there, too, in Arlington.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I feel bad for anybody, it's the people who own the homes, literally across the street from there. They're going to have to get a cut in this somehow, right? The only situation that I feel this compares to is like Lambeau.
But there was a time where Arlington Park was a pretty big deal, and there was a lot of people there every single day going there. So,
Is this the example? You bought a house by the airport. What do you expect? There's going to be planes?
Yes. Right? You live by the airport. You know how many planes are flying around?
I do, yeah.
And when I was your neighbor, every morning at 5 a.m., pew, 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 all those flights coming in from the East Coast starting to land.
Yeah.
But we signed up for that. It's...
I would say you have a new revenue source coming.
Yes.
The village of Arlington Heights should allow them to pay or charge people $50 to park in their driveways. And they would make money. They would make money. That's what they do in Green Bay. Rick Tellender, my old colleague from the Sun-Times, used to park in this lady's front lawn for years outside Lambeau. For years. Even when he was getting parking passes, she would save him a spot on her lawn. He would pull up there, sometimes with a tractor trailer on the way up to his lake house. But
that's funny because Lambeau's actually one of the more convenient places where they put the media.
Yes.
Yes. Of all the stadiums, they actually are actually, here you go. There's a nice parking spot right by the door.
Yeah.
But
there's homes right there.
We did that in Madison before Badger games. We live close to the stadium. We moved our cars onto the street a couple days before the game, and then we said, hey, come park in the driveway. $10, $20. You can even use our bathroom if you want.
Yeah. See what I mean? Yeah. They do that around Northwestern, do they not?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you live by Arlington Park, there's your positive news for the day.
How do you think our friend Pat Finley makes all his money?
Yeah.
Selling those parking
All
spots on
those suits
Saturday.
he wears. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Those green pants. How do you think he bought those green pants he wore in Los Angeles a couple
By
weeks
asking for some green, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can let us know your thoughts on the Bears possibly moving to Arlington. This thing is down the road. I could also tell you, there's just been so many things behind the scenes you hear here and there, which is why I've known for a while now. This is not a bluff. It was never a bluff. It was never it might be a negotiating tactic a little bit, but it's more than that. It's definitely more than that. Speaking of traffic, like I already know that they've started to look into that. What are they? The 53, which runs north southwest of Arlington Park right now. That's been a discussion for years about extending that, making that bigger. Because right now it just dead ends at Lake Cook Road. Extending it into Lake County. Now that goes beyond Arlington Park. But these are the type of things that end up being affected when you have something this big get discussed and potentially done. So we'll have to see where it goes from here. But in the meantime, Matt Nagy's got to talk today. And
there's a quarterback thing to
good distraction by
well timed, actually.
Yeah. 47 yards of offense. We should probably put out the Arlington Park news.
Yeah.
No, I actually always expected it this week, to be honest. Since
the last race was Saturday.
The last race was Saturday. So I think that makes perfect sense, but it is convenient for the Bears. I will say that.
I'll say this. It won't completely distract everybody. Like, these news cycles aren't like 24 hours anymore. It's like, especially with social media, they're like 12-hour news cycles. So once Matt Nagy steps up to that lectern, podium, whatever you want to call it, in 2.5 hours, yeah, it's back on.
It's back on. By the way, we asked for Nagy to talk today. And there's like this Twitter firestorm going on right now about why Matt Nagy's talking Wednesday instead of Thursday, because we asked for it. All right, there's quarterback news to discuss. Also, we should say thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you do not miss the regular Tuesday episode that we had go out yesterday, though. The very good stuff with JT O'Sullivan from the QB school on Justin Fields, on those problems with the Bears offense. So all of that stuff very much still relevant, and make sure you don't skip over that episode just because this one has now popped into your timeline.
You'll learn a little.
Yeah. It's very informative. Very informative. A lot of scheme stuff, a lot of the whys. Right? We found the whys.
The what's and the whys.
Yeah. The what's, the what the hells. There's a lot of
No,
things.
It was a quote last year, the wheres and the whys. The wheres and the whys.
The wheres and the whys, okay. Well, where the Bears are going to be playing in the future?
The why? Because they need their own stadium.
Oh, the why on this one I feel like is fairly obvious.
Yes. Yeah. We're good.
Now we got the where. Now we got the where. We'll see where it goes. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. Make sure you check out the coverage on The Athletic on this story. They are the ones who broke it. Scott Powers is a good man. Love that dude. Good work by him for nailing this thing down. And so check it out there. We have some Fallout coverage, too, on NBCSportsChicago.com as well. So you can check that out. And my film review on Justin Fields, speaking of whys and things like that. You're not going to want to read that right now. I'm not going to lie. Nobody wants to read about the mistakes that Justin Fields made, even if there weren't the Arlington Heights news. But it's out there. If you want to check it out, please do. We'll talk to you tomorrow as we preview the Detroit Lions.
Ooh. See ya.